Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be treating some rust on the MGTF. So you might remember in an earlier video I mentioned that the MG's got some rust on the inside wheel arch of the front wing, on both the driver side and the passenger side. But in today's video we're going to be looking at that rust on the driver's side wing. To do the job today we're going to be using some various grades of sandpaper. I actually picked all of these up from Halfords, but you can get packs of sandpaper from your local DIY shop as well. The different grades I'm going to be using is starting with a 40 grit, then an 80, and then a 120, 400. I've also got 800 and 1200 down there, but I probably won't use those to start with because these are just going to be used for getting the rust off the front wing. Once the rust's off, we're then going to be treating whatever is left. So we should be down to bare metal at that point, but we'll be putting some Kurust on there. So I'll pop a link down below where you can get this from. And what Kurust does is it converts any rust that is there into not rust. I'm not sure what else you would call it, but once it's been converted you can just paint straight over this stuff, and I have used it on the car before and found that it works really well. Once that's done, we're then on to the different types of paint. So you'll see when we get out to the car that it is a really small area of rust that we're treating, but better to get these things sorted quickly. And because of where it is in quite a discreet place, I'm going to try and do it without spray painting. So we're going to be using some very fine artist brushes. So once we're doing down to the point of actually painting it, so we've got etch primer to go on base layer, then there's a high build primer to go on top of that, followed by a colour matched Starlight Silver paint and the ultra clear coat. I'll pop a link in the description below for where I got these from, because getting Starlight Silver that matches the colour of the car can be quite tricky. So I have found in the past that sometimes you can get these colour coded paints pre-made and they aren't quite the same colour as your car. So if you've got a local paint shop or a company that mixes paints near you, I would highly recommend going to them, because a lot of them do have pieces of equipment that can they put it on the car and it reads the colour, and then they'll mix a paint that matches that exact colour. And what that does is it allows for the fact that over time, so the car's now 16 years old, so over time the colour of your paint does change. So the colour that it was when it came out of the factory might not necessarily be the colour that it is now. So getting an exact match is a really good recommendation. So enough talking, let's get out to the car and start the job. So the first thing we're going to do is just show you the rust that we're treating today. So if we go in close, you can see the rust is just here and here, and it's just starting to come through the paint. You see the orange bits that are coming through there. So we're going to get it sorted today before it starts to come through out onto the edge of the panel, because once it's out here it's harder to sort out, and with it being here you can do it and hide it quite nicely with the rest of the inside of the edge of the panel. So the first thing we'll do is get the area cleaned up. After that we'll do the first lot of sanding. We use the 40 grit sandpaper to get the first layer of paint off. Because we're going to be sanding such a small area, I've cut off from the bit of sandpaper a really small piece. Usually I would use something behind this to keep the shape of the sandpaper so you don't end up sanding unevenly, but because it's in such a discreet place and it's on an angle anyway, I think it's better to keep a really small piece of sandpaper so you don't end up sanding more off than you want to. So what we're wanting to do as we're sanding the rust back is basically get it back to bare metal. So you'll see in the middle we're almost back to bare metal across the area now. It's just around the edge there's still a little bit of rust there, and it's the same up here. We've got back to bare metal on the inside edge, and we're just trying to get back to bare metal on there. Once we've at that point we know that we've actually got rid of all the rust, and it's only then that you can then start to treat it and put the paint on, because if you don't get all of the rust get rid of all the rust at this point, it will just bubble back through at a later date and you'll have to do the whole thing all over again. So I'm starting to get a little bit impatient with the progress we were making, so I've decided I'm going to get out the Dremel and I'm going to sand back this area using the Dremel and hopefully be a lot quicker. You can keep using the different grades of sandpaper to get it back to bare metal. It is possible to do that, it just takes a little bit longer and I'm starting to get a little bit impatient, so we're going to crack on and use this and see if we can get it done a bit quicker. That was a lot quicker. You'll see we've got back to bare metal on both this bottom patch here and then the top patch here. I think we've almost got rid of all the rust. There might be a little bit just there and a little bit just there, so I'm going to do those two bits at the top there and there, and then I think we'll be treating this area with the Kurust and then getting the primer on. Okay, so we're now going to put the Hammerite Kurust on. We're just going to paint that quite liberally onto the area that we're treating. If there's any rust that's still there, you'll see it turn black, and then I believe you can then put the top coat on after 3 hours, so we'll leave this. If anything turns black, we'll then be able to paint over it. If not, we'll be able to put the etch primer on to start the process of painting. The first thing to do before painting any of these layers with these spray cans is to give them a good shake. So if it's cold weather, the other thing that they do recommend, I think particularly with the actual paint layer, your colour coat, is to put them in hot water. So give them a good shake for about 2 minutes, put them in hot water, and that helps to mix the paint up before you spray it onto the car. So the plan is, because we're painting such a small area, what I'm going to do is put some of the paint into the lid and then paint it with a small brush. So if you were doing a much larger area, obviously you would spray paint it on using the can, because you get better coverage over a larger area, but because it is such a small area and I want to keep control of where the paint goes better, I'm going to put some of the paint in the can lid, and I'm going to do that for all 4 different layers, so the etch primer, the primer on top of that, the colour coat and the clear coat. So one of the reasons why I do these videos, because I'm no expert, but is to make mistakes so that I can show you what went wrong and what went well as we go along. So one of the mistakes I've just made, which you're going to see in a minute, and I'm going to try and correct and make sure we get it right going forwards, is not putting some masking tape on the wheel arch liner before we started painting. There's a little bit of paint, primer layer paint on the wheel arch liner, so we'll try and get that paint off, put some masking tape on behind there, so that as we do the next layers of paint we won't get any paint on the wheel arch liner. So the first primer layer is on, so we're going to give it about 10-15 minutes to dry, and then we'll do the next primer layer. So the first layer of primer is now dried, so we're on to the second one. This layer is the high build primer, so we'll give this one a good shake as well for a minute or two, and then we'll get this one sprayed in the pot, painted on, and then we'll leave that to dry for another 10-15 minutes. The second layer of primer is now dried, so we're going to move on to the colour coat. So we'll give this a good shake it for about a minute, 2 minutes, and if it's cold, put it in some hot water first, and then when we've got it warmed up, we'll spray it in the lid and then paint it on with a paintbrush. Once you've sprayed the paint in the pot lid, what I'd recommend is letting it go a little bit tacky first before you then paint it onto the car. So the second coat of colour is drying. You can tell we're hardly going to win any awards for car painting, but that isn't the purpose here. The purpose is to stop rust from spreading. What I am going to do, just to try and hide it a little bit, so you see down here is some stone chip that was put on, stone chip paint that was put on. I had that put on by a garage earlier in the year when they were doing some work under the car. So I'm going to put some masking tape, follow that line at the edge of the stone chip up to around about here, and mask off the edge, and then hopefully we can try and hide the fact that it's been painted a little bit and make it look a little bit like there's stone chip on there. Shaking the paint for the final layer, which is going to be the clear coat. So we're going to give that a good shake for a minute or so and spray it into the lid, and then we'll get that paint on the car with a brush. So now the clear coat's hardened off, I'm going to take this masking tape off and take a look at what it looks like. So with the masking tape off, you can see it's blended in relatively nicely. At the top it is a bit obvious. I think we could have done with putting a bit more colour coat on there, but at a distance it is blending in quite well, so I'm really pleased with that. There we have it. The paint job's hardly going to win any awards, to be honest, but it's going to help stop that rust spreading any further around the wing, which is the purpose of getting this job done. It might be that I choose to get the whole wing resprayed properly in the future. If you've got more widespread rust, you're probably not going to want to do it by painting it with a brush. So MG Lee has done a video where he spray paints the whole front wing, so I'll pop a link up there for that, so you can take a look at that if you want to how to spray a whole panel. Hopefully you found today's video useful. If you did, please do give the video a like down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and until the next video, I'll see you soon.